Okay guys, I'm going to talk about pornography on this channel, and I'm going to break it down because there's a lot to it. So let me start with something intimate. This is kind of going to be a more intimate channel than on my normal channel. Okay? 36C. That's what I was, and I'm not going to get into where I am now, but that's where I usually was with my husband. And he would say that it's not big enough for him. When a husband, for the most part, he loved my body. He did love my body. He loved everything about me, even my chest. But sometimes he'd be like, oh, I wish you were a little bit bigger. Where does this come from? Where does it come from? I mean, that's insulting to a woman, right? Do not let a man insult you. Do not let him insult you at all. If he's not happy, he can go find somebody else. And that's kind of how I felt a lot. And so my husband was in pornography, didn't know it when we got married. In fact, I didn't even really know much about it. He had found magazines hanging around his dad's stuff. So that's what got him addicted at a very young age. I think it was like, I don't know, maybe 14. That is really difficult to deal with when you're addicted at a young age. And then there was MTV. There was all the HBO late at night. So I didn't know this when I married him. And when we were dating, we unfortunately, again, I didn't know much as a teenager. I already had my boyfriends. I had my first boyfriend, and then I had, I'll be talking about my boyfriends on this channel. I had another boyfriend that I had already liked and broke up with this first boyfriend, not even knowing I was pregnant. No idea I was pregnant until later. So this guy was not a real good guy, broke into my family's home, etc. So that was like the worst dating. Well, not the worst. There were some other things, just different. That was a bad dating thing. Bad thing to date this guy. Anyways, then Ben and I were together. And then he abandoned me already once. He left. We were living together. Not the best thing to do. They say if you live together, you're more likely to break up. Didn't know that. So we did live together in Concord on Monroe Street. This place was really expensive. We couldn't afford it. So we went back home with the idea that we would still be together. And then he totally dumped me. And he said he wanted his freedom. Now, he didn't end up with anyone. He didn't. He came to his senses and realized that, you know, that was a stupid move. But I didn't see it back then, that he was so easily able to dump me. And he was hanging around with some bad dudes. Well, not the best. Well, I mean, just not the best influences at the time. And I was still in the picture from a distance. And, you know, he went to this party with some scums. And then we were back together at a party. We got back together, so to say, and stuff. So, so then when he had broke up with me, he wanted his freedom. So I'm like, fine, I'll take my freedom. And I was kind of dating short term by then. It wasn't a long term relationship. It was just short term because I was so hurt and just didn't care. So then anyways, we got married, and he, I remember as a kid once seeing a magazine in my father's drawer, and I was putting my mother and I were putting clothes away, and I'm like, I was disgusted. I just saw the cover and I was like, what is that? And it was confusing to me. And she's like, oh, that's just your dad's, and into subject. And so, so when my husband I found out he was in this, I told my mother, and I'm like, what? We're married and he's dealing with this? And she's like, oh, every guy has that. It's no big deal. So I was like, oh, okay. And I brought him a magazine thinking it's no big deal. Oh my goodness, it is a big deal. It is a big deal. And I'm going to be talking about this because it breaks intimacy in your marriage. He had told me before he was done. I caught him looking at the garbage. Another time he told me he was done. He was lying straight to my face. What it does is it doesn't just break intimacy. But I mean, I would get ticked off, and I'd be like, this is not okay. You know, we're married. We're Christians now. And I became a Christian, and this is not okay. And then another thing it can do is have men have a wandering eye because they're looking at other women. They're lusting after them. So you can just go to Walmart and there's a woman, I mean, she doesn't even have to be good looking, and he's checking her out. So he had a very good looking wife, and he was constantly, having a wandering eye at church, everywhere. And it's just gotten to the point where you cannot help somebody who's in that. You just can't, because it's their problem and you cannot help them. And I did have an older lady mentor me and say, Melissa, I would still respect him even though he is, in that stuff and it's disgusting. I would still respect him. I did end up looking at some books about it, and I forget the name of the author, but there's a lady who talks about it, how her husband's brain was just totally rewired from it. So it's not healthy, it's not good, and it can make you feel like you're not good enough. It can make you feel like crap. It can make you feel like, what is wrong with me? And I think that is the biggest issue for women to overcome. When you see your husband in this garbage, you're like, you take it personal. You're like, what is wrong with me? And of course, there's men out there who have the most beautiful woman on their side and they are still in this stuff. And it's not okay. It's adultery. It's wrong. So the biggest thing you can do is take care of yourself and invest in yourself, not trying to get his approval, but just be the best you can be and know that that stuff is fake. It's not real. It's destructive, and it really is his problem. So don't take it personal and just continue to work on your self and be very confrontational. If you see anything like that, you say, hey, this is not allowed in our marriage, and you're not going to be with me until you can straighten this problem out, or you're not going to be married until you can straighten this out, or I'm going to hold you accountable. And where did you put that book that you were hiding? Where did you put this? Where did you put that? I would be very, very, very diligent about making sure you have a clean home, which I did, because I knew too, my boys growing up, I did not want them coming across anything, and they didn't. And I am so thankful for that, because when it's in the home or on the TV or anywhere, it's so easy for boys to get into that. So make sure you have a clean home. Make sure it's filled with godly music and other godly books and godly stuff. Do not allow it at all. Even if it's his weakness, don't allow it, because then you will compromise yourself at some level.